The anime begins in Rome, the capital of the Roman Empire, specifically in the year 54 BC. During these days, there was a 15-year-old boy named Cestus, a soldier. The Roman Empire killed his family, leaving him an orphan, and he was sent to a school for training boxers. So he stayed as a servant there and trained in boxing with kids like him. One day, the school principal, whose name was Valens, said to all the children, "Now every two of you will fight, and the winner will continue with us, but the loser will be killed." Unfortunately, Cestus's opponent was going to be one of his friends named Rocco. Suddenly, Cestus's teacher at the school, named Zafar, appeared and began cheering for him. However, Cestus didn't want to fight Rocco because he was his friend. The fight started, and Rocco attacked, but Cestus quickly evaded the attack and tried not to hurt Rocco. Cestus continued trying not to harm Rocco until he was forced to strike him in order to end the fight, and indeed, he emerged victorious. And Valens, the head of the school, ordered the soldiers to kill Rocco. Cestus witnessed it and shouted. Valens then declared to all the winners that they would become boxers serving him, and if anyone achieved 100 victories in their fights, they would be granted freedom. Cestus thought to himself, "I must win my freedom," and he intensified his training with his teacher Zafar. Until one day, Zafar told him that there would be an event in the presence of the emperor, with fights between different schools. And you will participate in it, but remember, the audience will determine the fate. If you lose in this festival, the audience will demand that the emperor's soldiers kill you, and you will die. Indeed, Cestus went to the festival, but while he was there, he got lost from his fellow students. He met a boy named Raska and got to know him. Raska showed him the way from there. After a while, Cestus faced the appointed fight, and the emperor was present watching. The emperor was a young boy, only 17 years old, named Nero. He inherited the throne after his father's death, and didn't want to attend the festival because he detested violence. The fight between Cestus and the opponent began, and in the opponent's mind, he thought it would be an easy victory against the child. However, when the opponent attacked, Cestus skillfully evaded his attacks and countered with precise strikes, eventually winning the fight. The audience cheered for Cestus, but the emperor was displeased with the opponent's performance and ordered his execution. The opponent pleaded for mercy, but his plea was not accepted. Cestus, feeling sympathy for the opponent, also requested clemency on his behalf, but the request was denied. The emperor's soldiers executed him, which saddened Cestus briefly. However, later the emperor summoned Cestus and said, "You have impressed me." Cestus was surprised to find that the emperor was just a young boy like him. He also got to know Nero's mother, whose name was Agrippina, and his assistant named Dmitri. Cestus learned that Dmitri and Zafar had fought against each other in the past. When Cestus was with Nero, he witnessed another scheduled fight in the arena. It was a battle involving Raska, the boy who had shown Cestus the way. The fight began, and Raska used techniques that were not typical of boxing. Cestus thought to himself that Raska wasn't a boxer. Dmitri explained that Raska was his son, and that he didn't use traditional boxing techniques, but instead employed a martial art called pankration. Raska was very strong, and after the fight, Nero invited Raska and Cestus to sit and talk with him. However, when Agrippina saw them sitting together, she insisted that they should fight each other. Nero refused, but Agrippina insisted, and Dmitri and Zafar began fighting. Cestus attacked despite being injured, but Raska successfully defended himself against all of Cestus's attacks and eventually won the fight. Agrippina was angered by Nero's refusal to order their deaths, so she left, and Nero followed her. The fight ended, and Dmitri was upset with Raska for not fighting at his full strength. Cestus and Zafar left the scene. Days later, the school where Cestus studied under Valens burned down, and Cestus decided to leave Rome and go to another city called Pompeii. This decision was influenced by a man named Fabers, whom Cestus and Zafar had come across, along with his group of friends. Cestus got to know Fabers and also met his assistant Noshka. When Cestus entered Fabers' palace, he saw a fighter named Emiden, who piqued his interest because Emiden trained in unique and unconventional methods. Cestus learned from Noshka that Emiden was an incredibly strong fighter who had never been defeated. At night, Cestus woke up because he wanted to use the bathroom. By chance, he saw a very beautiful girl named Spina, and he learned that she was wealthy and lived in the palace. Spina also revealed that she was Fabers' daughter, the man who had purchased Cestus and his friends. The next morning, a woman from the city came to Spina and told her that some fighters had invaded her bar, stolen from her, and were now refusing to leave. She begged Cestus for help, and Cestus, along with his friends, went to the bar to deal with the fighters who had taken over. Cestus and his friends fought against the intruders until a giant fighter attacked Cestus. They struggled, but the intruders managed to escape. Cestus couldn't catch up with them. However, Noshka arrived at the scene with Emiden, and Emiden fought the giant who had escaped, defeating him and capturing him. Spina thanked Emiden for his help, and he learned that she had made a deal with Emiden several years ago. She promised him his freedom if he could achieve 50 consecutive victories in his fights. Currently, Emmeline had achieved 48 victories, and Cestus was intrigued by this information. Noshka explained that Spina had an agreement with Emmeline, and Fabers knew about it too. Emmeline had already achieved 48 victories, so he only needed 2 more to earn his freedom. Cestus felt determined to overcome his fear of stronger opponents. Cestus later spoke to Zafar and admitted that he had a problem. Whenever he fought someone bigger or stronger than himself, he felt a sense of defeat even before the fight began. Zafar assured him that they would teach him a finishing move that would give him the confidence to face opponents of any size and strength. His fear of stronger opponents. Later, Spina asked Cestus to come to her. She was impressed by his strength and offered to buy him, granting him his freedom. She wanted him to be her assistant and accompany her to Rome. However, Cestus refused her offer, explaining that he didn't want to leave his teacher and friends, and he didn't want anyone to buy him again. He wanted to earn his freedom through his own strength and victories. Spina was upset by Cestus' rejection and considered him foolish. She called Emmeline and told him that their next fight, which was just a few days away, would be against Cestus. She wanted Emmeline to defeat Cestus, and he agreed. Cestus and his friends began intense training for the upcoming fight. The day of the fight arrived, and Spina watched as Emmeline faced Cestus in the arena. Emmeline wore metal gauntlets on his hands, and the audience saw Cestus as a child, assuming that Emmeline would defeat him easily. The fight began with Cestus launching rapid attacks and searching for an opening. Emmeline blocked his attacks with the metal gauntlets until Cestus found a weak spot and struck Emmeline, causing him to fall. On the ground, everyone was amazed as they realized that Cestus wasn't as weak as they initially thought. Emmeline continued to attack, using his fists to strike Cestus' chest, and then delivering a blow to the side of his head, causing Cestus to fall. The audience believed that Cestus had lost the fight. However, despite the fall, Cestus struggled to his feet and prepared to launch another attack. Emmeline was intentionally drawing out the fight to practice a finishing move. Just as Cestus regained his composure and prepared to attack, Emmeline struck with a devastating blow from above called the decapitating blow. During this era, boxing had different rules, and this type of blow was legal and allowed. Cestus fell unconscious, and while he was down, Emmeline surprised everyone by landing a second blow. Cestus, still conscious but temporarily disoriented, couldn't defend himself. Emmeline delivered 2 more blows. Cestus' memory was briefly affected by the hits, and he struggled to remember anything. Emmeline believed the fight was over, but to his surprise, Cestus slowly got up. Even though he had temporary memory loss, Cestus had remembered a finishing move that Zafar had taught him. He realized he needed to use that move. Suddenly, Cestus launched another attack, but he stumbled, giving Emmeline an opening to strike him again. But Cestus endured the pain despite the broken ribs inflicted upon him by Emmeline. The spectators couldn't believe that Cestus was standing up to Emmeline's attacks and continuing to fight. Noshka, who had been watching, remembered the first time he had seen Cestus and Emmeline. Back when they were orphan children, they had dreamed of being purchased by someone from their group. One day, they arrived at Faber's palace, and Spina informed them that she would choose only one child to become a servant in their palace. The chosen child would live in the palace while the others would remain on the streets, competing for the position. After various struggles and fights among the children, Noshka and Emmeline emerged as the winners and became servants in the palace. Noshka recalled how Emmeline had always been brave, but he also admired Cestus' courage. This was the first time Noshka had seen Emmeline fighting and was impressed by his skills. Emmeline was hit and injured, but Spina chose both of them as servants, and they remained in the palace. Noshka returned to the present, inspired by Cestus' determination. He started encouraging Cestus, and the audience joined in cheering for him. The fight continued, and Cestus managed to evade a 3-fold attack from Emmeline, striking him in the face. However, when Cestus stepped back, he realized that he had been injured in the head and was bleeding. Blood covered his left eye, impairing his vision. Cestus knew that it was time to use the finishing blow. He attacked Emmeline again, targeting his already broken ribs. Emmeline attempted a counterattack but was swiftly struck by Cestus' final and decisive blow, the decapitating blow. Emmeline fell, defeated. But Cestus had won the fight, and the audience was divided in their reaction. Some called for Emmeline's death, as he had lost to Cestus, while others pleaded for his mercy. Spina intervened and reminded the crowd that there were many more battles to come in the tournament, aside from this one. Spina acknowledged Emmeline's bravery and effort despite his defeat and decided to grant him his freedom. Meanwhile, Cestus had fainted due to exhaustion and his injuries. He awoke to find himself in a bed surrounded by his friends, but there was no sign of Zafar. Cestus inquired about the powerful finishing blow he had used, similar to the one he had learned from a mysterious teacher years ago, and Maiden explained that he too had been taught the same technique by the enigmatic teacher named Democritus, who had made him strong. Cestus and Zafar realized that they had both been taught by Democritus, and that their techniques were similar. When asked about the teacher's whereabouts, Zafar claimed that he had disappeared after making them strong. After a few days, the tournament concluded, and Noshka informed Cestus that Lord Fabris wanted to thank them personally. Lord Fabris had bought them to participate in the tournament under his name. Cestus, Zafar, and their friends were grateful for the opportunity, but decided to leave Lord Fabris' palace. As they left, they encountered the townspeople, who cheered for Cestus and celebrated his victory over Emmedan. Cestus and his companions then met a man named Driscoll, who had purchased them. They traveled together to an area where roads were being constructed. There, Zafar instructed them to dig in the ground every day as part of their training, even though they struggled with the heavy tools. They continued this rigorous training for 2 months, enduring injuries and exhaustion. One day, 2 messengers from the imperial palace arrived and informed Cestus that the emperor had ordered the gathering of the strongest fighters for a grand tournament to be held in 3 months. The winner would receive a substantial prize, and in Cestus' case, it could mean his freedom. Cestus was determined to participate in the tournament and win his freedom. He also decided to enter the competition with one of his friends, Rodok, who specialized in the arts. In the small arena, Cestus faced off against a fighter named Zane in the first round of the tournament. Cestus moved swiftly and struck his opponent multiple times, ultimately defeating him with ease. In the next round, Cestus encountered another opponent whom he defeated effortlessly as well. During these days, Cestus began to appreciate the value of the training he received with the Maul, even though it had left him physically drained. Cestus heard rumors about a powerful boxer named Felix, who was also competing in the tournament. Felix had learned about Cestus' strength, and they both sensed the impending showdown. Cestus was determined to face Felix and was ready to prove his newfound strength. As the third round of the tournament approached, Cestus' nerves were on edge. He began to understand the importance of training with a pickaxe, just as Zafar told him. Cestus fought his third opponent, and towards the end of the battle, he delivered a rapid blow that rendered his opponent unconscious. Cestus realized that his training had made him stronger. With just 4 fighters remaining in the semifinals, including Cestus and Felix, the tension rose. Felix approached Cestus and proposed that if they both won their next matches, they should face each other in the tournament's final. Cestus agreed, and Felix departed. The next day, Cestus prepared for his semifinal match, winning it with ease. Meanwhile, Felix watched the match, analyzing Cestus' fighting style and strength. He learned that Zafar was Cestus' trainer and that Zafar had been a formidable fighter in the past, only to retire after sustaining a knee injury. Felix was determined to defeat Cestus to avenge his own past losses and prove that he was stronger. Cestus, on the other hand, dreamed of victory and freedom. The day of the final match between Cestus and Felix arrived, and both fighters entered the arena, ready to face each other. The battle began, and both fighters were cautious. Cestus made a quick attack, but Felix deflected it and taunted Cestus about fighting in such a small arena. Felix then launched a counterattack and struck Cestus with his second hand. Cestus was surprised, feeling that he had dodged the blow, yet Felix had landed it. Cestus realized the challenge he faced in the small arena and the skill of his opponent, Felix. He acknowledged the need to adapt to the circumstances to win this crucial battle. Felix used the same strategy and managed to strike Cestus. He continued his assault until Cestus found himself cornered at the edge of the arena. Cestus struggled to find a solution, but he realized that his right ankle had been injured during Felix's initial attack, limiting his mobility. As Cestus thought about his predicament, he observed that Felix's attacks came from a wide range, and Felix neglected his defense in the center of his body. Cestus seized this opportunity and launched an attack from the center, successfully striking Felix. This change in tactics caught Felix off guard, and he suffered the blows. Cestus continued to target Felix's abdomen and side, similar to his strategy against Emmedan. He weakened Felix and reduced his focus, ultimately causing him to struggle to breathe. With Felix's defenses lowered, Cestus struck him multiple times in the face with his hands. Finally, he delivered a decisive blow to Felix's side, rendering him unconscious. Cestus emerged victorious, securing his place in the tournament's finals. However, he was exhausted from the intense battle. The following day, Felix approached Cestus and urged him to give his best in the tournament's finals, warning him not to lose. After Felix left, Zafar joined Cestus and his friends on a boat trip to the island of Thakilia, where the tournament's finals were scheduled to take place. During the journey, Zafar revealed that he had enhanced their training by modifying the maul's striking end, making it more challenging to wield. One of Cestus' friends questioned the purpose of such intense training, to which Zafar responded by crushing an apple effortlessly in his hand, demonstrating the strength they had gained. Upon reaching Thakilia, Cestus encountered many other tournament participants, including Ruska, who had grown since their last meeting and appeared to be under Emperor Nero's influence. Rusca advised Cestus to withdraw from the tournament, warning him of its brutality. However, Cestus was determined to continue. The following day, all the fighters gathered at the arena, where Emperor Nero made an announcement. The tournament's opening marks the conclusion of the first season of the anime Cestvs, which was produced in 2021. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and like it.